A very warm welcome to everybody here and in the live stream. We will have a panel discussion on strong female characters in contemporary Latin American graphic novels. And we'll be seeing the works of our guests Sole Otero and Marcello Quintanilha. So let's have a very warm welcome to our guests Sole Otero from Argentina and Marcello Quintanilha from Brazil. Sole Otero is an Argentinian comic artist. She's from Buenos Aires, and she graduated at the University of Buenos Aires in textile design. And then she worked as a teacher at that university. Meanwhile, she started to do also drawing and illustration. Is there any comment or something? Okay, yeah, so we had an interference. Sole Otero has been publishing comics and graphic novels since 2015. Naphthalin was published last year in my translation in German by Reprodukt Verlag. And it's been translated also into several different languages. Sole is living and working in Angoulême, France, at the moment. Or for several years now, no? Yeah. Marcello is from Niterói, state of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and he's a self-taught illustrator. He started his work as a comic drawer or comic artist doing horror comics when he was very young. Then he spent several years doing animation films. And his graphic novel Tungstenio was published in German in my translation by Avant Verlag. This was in 2017 after being received an award in Angoulême. Listen, Beautiful Márcia is the title. In original is Escuta Formosa Márcia. In German is Hör nur, schöne Márcia. It was published by Reprodukt Verlag last year and won a Max and Moritz award yesterday in my translation, so I'm very proud and it's a special moment for us. And Marcello lives and works in Barcelona, Spain. Now the main topic of our talk will be this, strong female figures in comic works, because say that there's a rise of strong women characters, and this is a change for a good, I'd say. We'll see if this is a tendency which is general, or what are examples in Latin America, because, I mean, the cast of male-dominated comics is a bit outdated. And first, I would like to know what was the motivation of having these characters in your graphic novels, in the story of Naphthalin and in the story of Márcia, because in the case of Márcia, she's working in a hospital, and she's doing also several different jobs, and she's not so very well off. And Márcia is mother of Jacqueline. She was mother very young. And Jacqueline is a very rebellious daughter, so the main issue could be the relationship of those. And in the case of Naphthalin, we have this grumpy old grandma, Wilma, and Rocio is her granddaughter. She moves in the house of the grandmother after the death of the grandmother, and kind of discovering the history, the past of this grandmother. But what was the motivation to create these characters? What about the urge to tell their stories?
Hello, thank you for coming. Naphthalin is mainly inspired in the life of my grandmother, my real grandmother, the mother of my dad. I decided to tell the story a long time ago. When she died, I wanted to talk about the relationship she had with the rest of the family, because that shaped the way the family behaved after she left and before, of course. And it's an attempt to do what is called a familiar constellation, to show how the traumas of one generation are reproduced in the next generation, even though the characters are not present there. And it's not an autobiographical or a biographical book. It's not really the story of my grandmother, but I use all the ways of reproducing these tendencies to build the story of Wilma, and yeah, it's that what inspired, like the real life, a real person.
So it's a bit autobiographical, but not exactly. It's fictionalized, and it's about searching in the past of a family life.
Yeah, it's auto-fictional, I would say. It's I took some things from my real life, and I didn't try to reproduce them exactly. I mixed them, I changed them, I used characters that were not there, I quitted stuff, I took out stuff because I didn't think it was helpful for the story, and that's how it came out.
Cool, thank you. And Marcello, reality and persons of Márcia.
Well, my main motivation to do this story was to create a situation where, and I thought about that for a long time, is to create a story around a situation where a mother, could be a father, maybe, had to take a very difficult decision to save his son, his daughter, and it's a decision that makes this character, in this case a mother, it makes her subvert her condition as a mother in order to save her daughter in a way. So it was like to deal with the very difficult situation when someone has to take a very hard decision to save someone. And well, that's the main motivation.
So it's mostly this absolutely strong point she's passing through because of this decision she has to make.
Yes, in fact, all the story goes around this decision. But I also think that this character specifically could take this decision exactly because she found a piece of art. In the case of the story, a music that has the same name as the character. And from that point on, this character, for the first time, has the opportunity to touch his own personality, his own humanity. And that's why she was able to take that decision later on the story.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful to see Márcia in these different moments when she's wondering if she's beautiful, for instance. It's really...
Yes, absolutely,
The title is about that also, because it's the title of the music, which was at the beginning of the 20th century, some music of the upper class or something.
It's a very ancient music that used to be played in the bourgeoisie reunion in the beginning of 19th century in Brazil. Yes, it's a music that it's on the origin of the Brazilian popular culture that exists nowadays. So I'm very interested in all of the things that formed the Brazilian popular culture. So
it's a nice side effect to have us in touch with this issue, also reading Márcia. And Sole, did your grandmother's house have the smell of naphthalin? Your grandmother's house smelled like mothballs, or?
My grandmother, I think that all the grandmother houses at least in Argentina, they all smell like naphthalin. Or they smelled, because I think the use of naphthalin is not so common now. There are not so many moths. There are not so many insects, except mosquitoes, unfortunately. So yeah, it's a smell that remains of the past. But also naftalina in Spanish, in Argentina, in the lunfardo, in the argot of Buenos Aires, is a word that is very, very common. It's in the middle of a lot of expressions, of oral expressions, and it's in a lot of tango lyrics. It's really used. So it connects. Well, I mean, it's like such an image that is a very poetical image that is very, very, very common and very used.
It's a pity that doing the translation, these aspects are not being passed to the audience in German-speaking languages. Super interesting details, yeah. And in the case of the beginning of Naphthalina, you have Rocio in the graveyard with a family, and nobody shows up to say goodbye to this to the grandmother, and this topic of being isolated person and perhaps being forgotten. Is this something you also have as a fear, or Rocio is challenging this? She's doing she's joking, and the parents are not very friendly with her, because this is not how to behave in a graveyard. But Rocio has also a kind of relationship with these mothballs. We see also in the cover, and in the grave she's also with mothballs. And she has this connection. Perhaps she knows that they will be telling her something, or what was the idea behind that beautiful mythical beginning scene?
The idea was that they were the balls of naphthalin, the ones that you put in the wardrobe to keep away the moths, and in a way they symbolize the smell of the grandmother, or is the presence of the grandmother. There is like something that happens in the book that is like to liberate the spirit of the grandmother. There is something that happens with the smell of the grandmother in the book, and so that's the way she connects with her, and I think it's the way I can connect with some things in the past. I think it's common to travel to the past through a smell or through a song also, but I use that as a link, I would say, with this grandmother.
I think it's curious to see that both books have this kind of sensual. One is listening an old music, which tells something to the character. The other is with the smell. So that's really, putting missing links together, or being the possibility to connect things. I think it's a nice aspect and a nice detail which you have in common with your works. I put in the announcing this talk, I also was talking about the secret weapons Wilma uses. We have also already talked about the mothballs who prevent her from being forgotten, because Rocio is with the smell. She's interested in having a solution about the hidden past of her grandmother, and the secret weapon in Márcia, which is a syringe. So you could tell us about this scene if you want to, because it's also like a dramatic filmic scene in which Márcia has to defend her from being raped at work.
Describe the scene for people to understand.
What?
Describe the scene.
The scene?
Yes.
Well, Márcia is working in a hospital, and there are people from her neighborhood, which are implicated in drug crimes, and they are trying to rape her, but they are putting her under pressure also. So that's and not to tell something, and it's a method of silencing her. And she
defends herself with
now you can use the micro, and yeah, that's what I also said, no, with the syringe.
Yes.
And the syringe is, she says, it's full of ugly, contaminating things she will inject to whenever one of these men will touch her, no?
Yes, in fact, it's a kind of a gun she has in case things like that would happen in their profession, in her profession, which is completely absurd. It's a completely absurd scene, but I hardly believe that absurd is part of day-by-day life, and even if the scene has surrealistic issues or things like that, it's absurd in a way that something like that could happen in Brazil, or I think everywhere, to be honest. I really don't think that something is completely absurd nowadays or impossible to happen nowadays. And even if the scene is not based on something real that could happen or that happened really, I hardly believe that the absurd realizes itself in the reality. That's why this scene is so strong, because although it's completely absurd, everybody is touched by that in a way that they may think, well, is it real? Could it be real? Yes, it could be real.
Yeah, that's the power of fiction also, and we see after that Márcia going through the corridors of the hospital, totally weak and shocked. But she won. She managed to get out of this situation. So that's also a very strong moment we see in your book. And I think it tells also about the situation of some sexist environment and the not helplessness, because she's defending herself effectually, but the urge or the necessity to do so. So this is a disequality and absolutely issue about patriarchal societies. We also see this in Sole Otero's book about the expectations Wilma had in terms of education, because it was quite a difficult situation when she wanted to be a teacher, wasn't it? And there's also this kind of disequality in her story in Argentinian society of about 100 years or less ago.
Yeah, I would
Not
say.
only in Argentina, of course, but tell us about Wilma and her hopes and frustrations, please.
I think it's a reflection of what was happening like in the middle or the first beginning of the century in Argentina. I mean, it's still harder in the second half of the century for some women, but especially at the beginning it was, I don't know, a lot of the women in my family never finished primary school. They had to be taken out of school to work. Children work was more common in those times. So a lot of people didn't finish school, and in between them, women, I think that the choice of like trying to make one of a brother, like a male brother, a male sibling, go to school and finish a career was a sacrifice that a poor family was making. In a way that this person could be like the first one to have a title to help the others. That was like the way a lot of people planned their future in the family, to pick someone that could save the rest, and it was always a male, a man. So I think, yeah, of course, for women was very difficult, especially in that social class, to have access to education. They had to work. Yep.
Yeah, that's a part of a reality we have also we know from our past in Europe also. That the advantage was in the male relatives and the wish to have a profession and be sustainable or stand for her own for a woman was never so a plan or not so much. And when we observe, for instance, the daughters, Rocio is the granddaughter, and she's quite young, and she has also confronting herself. She has to confront herself with her parents who want her to study. That's the opposite. But she's not quite sure if she wants that, so she's kind of trying to find her way. And in which way to remember her grandmother helps her to find her way?
Well, I think it's exactly that. It's the opposite situation. It's the opposite situation, and in a way it's the same situation, because Rocio is forced to study the only thing that her grandmother was wanted to do. And that made specifically their relationship conflicted, because her grandmother is the person that pushed her more into studying with a reason. It's understandable that her grandmother wanted her to study a serious career that could be good for her. But Rocio also is trying to figure out how to be herself, and she has more options, so she can go into this secondary quest that is more. It's like a quest that we are able to have now because of all the advantages that we gain with time. And yeah, it's like the. Also, I think the thing that Rocio goes through the story of Naphthalin is to understand the history of her grandmother, understand why her grandmother was pushing her, understand the difference in between the situations, and also is overcoming the fear that she has of becoming her grandmother in a way.
So she needs more time, and she also feels the pressure. Yeah. In the case of Jacqueline, Márcia's daughter, she definitely knows what she wants to do, but her mother is not. She's not willing to let her daughter go on, continue on her way. She's decided to stop her, and this is about this decision you mentioned. We won't spoil, but
go on, let's spoil.
And Jacqueline, how would you say is Jacqueline's situation in society or in family?
Well, Jacqueline is. I created this character to be a kind of another part of the character of Márcia. And each time they are speaking, they are arguing with each other. It's like if Márcia would argue against her own, because they are very, very similar, physically and also mentally. Although Márcia has a very strong feeling about moral concepts that are more accepted in society, Jacqueline has another perception of the society. And
could you explain?
Yes, she enters in the criminal world and all of these things. Both of them are very articulated, are very smart, are very can deal with many situations at the same time. both of them has very similar personalities, but in a completely different worlds. And that's why the shock is so strong all the time, because there are two worlds that are shocking, not only to people. And yes, I think that Jacqueline would be a very interesting version of the character of Márcia.
Yeah, they are really close to each other, but also living in different worlds, thinking in a legal way, to say so.
Yes,
and
absolutely,
I
yes.
thought that when I was translating this, that the dialogues are really alike. I mean, the way they are talking, which you mentioned now, and also this kind of dealing with different people. So this is also the strength of the dialogues, and they're really strong and sometimes really fast, ongoing, and you see it also as the bubble is made in a different way, and huge letters, so they are shouting a lot. In Naphthalin, there's more quietness, I think. There are also more pages without dialogue bubbles, but nevertheless, they are narrating a lot. There are scenes which are remembering also sexual abuse of Wilma, or there's reflections on their childhood experience when with their cat was not wished by the dad to have a cat, and things which were kind of cruel, but you show it in these nice drawn. You depict your figures in an absolutely positive way. It's colorful and beautiful to look at. Also, what was your decision to adopt this style?
Well, I think it's the way I draw, I guess. I don't know. I think it's the way I see things too. I don't know. I think there is a way in which I perceive sadness in a beautiful way too, because sadness is necessary. To feel sadness is necessary to feel alive also. So I think all these things are, like the colors used for sad things are okay. I don't know, I just see them naturally. I also have, I have synesthesia, so I connect words with colors and situations and music with colors, so that's like, they just come, I just see things like that. I don't have like a very deep explanation. I can choose the color scheme sometimes thinking, like, for example, in the pages of the past, I choose like a old pink for the pages, because I connect that color with grandmothers, with the past, with a female way of showing the past. But most of the things, or I don't know, I chose like a different color for the clothes of every character, because they were aging through the story, and I wanted to help the reader to focus and to see very clearly which character was which character. So they keep the same color for the clothes. But a lot of the things and a lot of the aesthetics of the book just came because I just thought that they were very fitting with the story.
Yeah, that's, of course, it's your style, but you're also, as you mentioned, guiding the readers through different times of the past. So that's I found it also very helpful, and also there's this detail that some figures don't have a face.
Yeah, that's another narrative decision, because one of the things that happens in the book is that Rocío is not capable to connect with anything outside of herself. She's very selfish in a way in the beginning of the book. And the country, the story settled just before the crisis, before the explosion of 2001 in Argentina, the economical crush that we had. And there were a lot of things going on in that time in Argentina, and she was in her own bubble. She was not really seeing what was happening around her, and there is people like picking garbage to eat in the street, and she's not looking at their faces, and there's something that gets transformed through the story that allows her to perceive other people that are not herself, and that are not anymore transparent. That's a symbolic thing. It's a detail. It's not like really important, but it's there.
It's a really interesting detail and feature. Also, absolutely to draw the attention, your readers see colors, Marcello, which are the world being not what we are used to, with a sky which is green or something, and everything is a different color. What was this decision? It's something you didn't do in your former works.
Yes, well, in this case, I wanted to create a kind of a metaphor with the disconnection from the reality that exists nowadays, internationally speaking, and in Brazilian terms especially. And it's a disconnection that comes perhaps from the difficulty that many people have to get the best information from the sources of information that are on their hands nowadays, and which sometimes makes people close themselves into particular worlds that not always has relation with reality. And I think that that's the reason I treated the colors in this way. Colors that are not connected with reality, just as well the world are not connected with reality nowadays. And to make this drawings, I used to draw directly with colors, and the lines, the black lines, came after the process was concluded, because I wanted the black line to be the minimum for the draw be clear. That's why there are so few black lines on the drawings. I wanted the draws to be like an explosion of colors, and well, I used a very short palette. I used only 28 colors to do the whole album.
Well, that's not so little, but well.
It's very little. It's okay. Very little. And that's the intention, to draw directly with colors, to make an explosion of colors, and to make an explosion of colors that are not connected with reality.
But for me, it was also showing that we have to concentrate on what the narration is telling us, and not which color has what person or object or something. So it's kind of helping us to abstract from what we, as you said also yesterday, to abstract from what we expect to be the world like. I mean, so I think it's guiding us also, but it's absolutely unusual. At the first glance, you are kind of shocked, yeah. But I think it's very attractive. To open a little bit up to other works which are, for instance, experimental or in Latin America, but also in general, perhaps in terms of strong women characters or the outdated male-dominated protagonism in comic narratives. What do you observe? Is it I think, good tendency nowadays, or is it kind of, doesn't matter, we will tell stories, and the focus on which gender is too much, or what is happening with this? In Latin America, are there more artists, women artists, who also show more protagonists which are women or which are dissident, or what's the tendencies?
I think that there is a tendency to write more stories that are intimated before, I think. That has to do a lot with a lot of female authors arriving to the scene, but it has also a lot to do with the wave of graphic novels and like this wave of authorial comics that appear in this last years. And if I talk specifically about Argentina had an industry that produced a lot of adventure comics that were almost all had male characters that were heroical, like Corto Martes, or that kind of stuff, like adventures, or political also. There were some female main characters, but they were written by guys mostly. And then on the other hand, in graphic humor, you had Kino, you had Maitena, a lot of, well, Maitena is a little bit newer, but there were female characters too, especially girls that were the main character of these cartoons. And then with the crisis that happened in the 90s, all the industry of comics disappeared, and that removed away all this industry, and that changed the game a lot because there were authors that were like proposing their own books, and that came all together with the arrival of the first authors, like not the first, very, very first, but with a lot of women that arrived in that scene to make their own comics. And yes, female characters started to be a little more common, I guess. There are a lot of female characters that are written, very, very well written by guys, like Dora, for example, is a series that is written and drawn by Ignacio Miraberri, that it's superb. And also that left a space to tell other gender identities or I don't know, other ways of perceiving people, as I think happened everywhere and in every media of art lately. So yes, that's what happened. I also think that there is a tendency that is to talk not only about heroical characters, but about more like three-dimensional people that has issues, that is strong, but at the same time is weak, and they have like normal problems, and it's not only about a task or a goal that these characters need to solve, but more about the relationship they have in between them and how they fit into society, and other interests appear, I think.
Yeah.
Yes, well, I agree. Well, what could I say more? Well, maybe I could say about how I deal with the situation, because sometimes when you write about a female character, it's like there is this shadow about the gender issues, and it's like how, and I also hear people asking me, like, how do you feel to writing about a female character? But I really don't know. I never think if one character will be a female or will be a male when I start writing a story, and I don't have clear idea about the female universe, because I never had a clear idea about the male universe.
Yeah, I was questioning if there was anything like a clear idea of a male or female universe anyhow, yeah.
And for me, this kind of things doesn't make any sense. And I hardly believe that all of the characters, and independent about their genders, are humans. So I work to comprehend the character, each character on its own personality, independently of the genders.
Yeah, or also like in society or with these advantages, or did he or she have them or not, an education or different chances in life, or to be not strong but to be weak, for instance, because I think you said something super interesting yesterday about privilege.
Well, yes, I would say that I've heard many times that people talks about Márcia as if she was a very strong woman, a very strong character, a character that are able to deal with many different and dangerous and extreme situations. But sometimes you just don't have another option but being strong. Which doesn't mean you are naturally strong, but sometimes it just means that you never had the chance or the opportunity to live, to experiment, to deal, to touch your own fragility. And I hardly believe that it's extremely important that all of us can touch our own fragility. And I hardly believe that's the most philosophical question on the 21st century.
That's really a good point, I think. Yeah. The privilege of being able to have fragile moments, or to have to feel and live fragility, and not to be forced to be strong, or to deal with a life you didn't plan, or not only plan, but you didn't wish to have, as in the case of Wilma, which is really the point that she ends frustrated because of this. So I think the hope is that personalities as Rocio, your character, here we see her, can think about all these and reflect and find her way. And she also, at the end of the book, she gets engaged and accompanies her mates to protest march because of the situation of the economic crisis. And I think that's a really good and hopeful point and end. Perhaps you can comment this turn.
Well, it's exactly that. Yes, she managed to review all the story of her grandmother, to see how her grandmother was away from politics, how she was disconnected from reality, how the reaction to all the things that happened to her were to just hide in the house, to disconnect herself from people, to push away all the people that was reminding her how she was failing somehow. I think that in the case of Wilma, thinking about what Marcelo was saying, I think she had the option of doing things differently, but in a way she just take a turn point to the way of like being bitter, not bitter, and to just shut herself. And the parkour that Rocio is making is like to see this, to at least take something from the experience of her grandmother, to not fall into the same path, to not become resented, because her grandmother is very resented about everything. She's very filled with remorse and hate, and she pushed away people that she loved because she was not able to understand them, because I think that human relationships it doesn't matter the time or the space, are always complicated, and they have always to be things to lose and to gain from them. So sometimes it's a lot to support or to stand, and sometimes it's just a matter of trying to understand what's happening.
Sometimes I have to confess I was suffering translating the dialogues because of the amount of bitterness in the words. yeah, so it's really doing a translation can be living with the story, living with the characters. I love my work. I'm very happy to have had you here for this talk. Normally I work with Portuguese as written or drawn by Marcello, and Spanish as Sole's language, and not with English, so I'm sorry for my English, but we performed here having a talk, and we didn't want to spend more time doing a translation here by me. And so I'm really happy we had this opportunity to have this talk, and thanks for coming. And yeah, I'm really curious to see your next works and translate them with all the dialogues and all implications.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.